Today's show is brought to you by TCU women's basketball. This is one of the coolest stories in sports that we are ignoring. And I say we, I haven't brought it up enough. And I think the national media started to catch on to an extent, but I'm not sure if we can bring it up enough. They were ravaged by injuries over the course of the last 2 weeks, whether it was sickness or actual injuries where these ladies going out with torn ACLs to broken fingers to you name it. TCU got to the point where they were playing with so few players, they couldn't actually play basketball games. They had to forfeit 2 games. And the initial reaction across the country is, this team that was in the top 25, this team that was so good and could have been a contender in Big 12 basketball, now they're forfeiting games? That's pretty embarrassing. That's something that we can laugh at. But no. On the contrary, this team was actually ravaged by injuries, and this team has actually been put in a position where they needed to forfeit games because they didn't have enough players to play safely. And it's not like this squad is a no-win, non-competitive team that, I get it. Like, why? They just suck, so they're trying to bow out. No, they were and have been legitimate contenders. And not only did they beat UCF yesterday in their first game back, which is nuts to me, by the way, they scored 27 points in the first quarter. They came out firing. They only scored 6 points in the second quarter just to eventually win this game in tight fashion. They showed you that, hey, we can dominate 27-15 in the first quarter, and we can win it when it's tight, outscoring UCF by 4 in the second half, try to get the win 66-60. And for TCU, they did it with 7 players. They got a volleyball player who's out there helping them out. They've got a walk-on. They held an open tryout for walk-ons who are just students. And they got, if I remember correctly, they got 3 girls in the walk-on ranks that are just like walk. I'm going to use the word, or I've been walking across campus to class. I'm like, you know what? I could be a TCU women's basketball player. And all 3 had won state championships at their high schools. And so when you look at a team like TCU that was supposed to be so good and is now ravaged by injury to the point where they had to forfeit a couple of games, having them win a game against UCF is massive. Like, that's one of the coolest stories that you make a documentary out of that. You do a 30 for 30 on how TCU basketball with barely enough players to play and a couple of walk-ons and a volleyball player are winning. These are some of the cool tweets that I saw too. I think TCU fans can bring this better than I can. And from Colin Post, TCU women's basketball now has as many conference wins this season with a literal member of the volleyball team on its roster as it did all of last year. Hard to see so many players go down, but Mark Campbell has this program headed toward a level it hasn't seen in a while. Ben Doika says, I know the TCU women's basketball story is crazy and getting a lot of national attention, but seeing all these huge counts, former WNBA players talking about it and rooting for the Frogs is insane. I'll be locked in for the rest of what I hope is a great Cinderella run. I all of these tweets that I was going through, just giving a lot of credit. And maybe, again, I want to go back to this. When I say like overlooked in the national media, maybe I'm saying that because you can't talk about this enough. They flex sealed together a women's basketball team out of necessity because they had to due to injury, and it's working. They won a game against Satia Messer at the UCF Knights, 15-4. They had to forfeit a couple of games, yes, but they're still a March Madness team. They could still put together a pretty crazy run, even without a Jaden Owens. They could still do it. By the way, I tutored Jaden Owens in math my sophomore year. At Baylor. Yep, that's right. Anything that she does, if she ever talks to you about math, guess where that started? Yeah, that was a lot of help. Ideas in mathematics. Couldn't tell you the professor name, but I know that Jaden Owens and I helped do the math thing, which made me feel good. TCU, congrats on being awesome. I said it. The Baylor grad said it. Congrats on being awesome. This is a story that I think everybody in the Big 12 should be able to get behind, come around, and say, that is cool. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad you're actually competing on I'll say it, kick-ass skeleton crew. Yeah, sorry, plug the kids' ears. Come back tomorrow. We'll talk some more hoops. Coleman Crowley is going to join the show. He couldn't today as long as we're in town. Sorry. I'm going to keep moving into this house and hopefully have more furniture. I'm doing this show from a lawn chair in my kitchen. But I always show up for you because I love you. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.